we're going to be talking about the Strait of Hormuz.
This morning,
as you guys might know, there was a war that was taking place over the last 110 plus days in the Persian Gulf. America and Israel struck Iran first, decapitated its leadership, and then, of course, Iran implemented its Mosaic defense system, started pummeling Bahrain, Kuwait, all the Gulf states. The American bases and American assets in these Gulf states were thoroughly dismantled and destroyed with relatively affordable Shahed drones that are approximately $10,000 a pop. And they never really stopped. And then there was a stalemate for like the last couple of months between the United States of America and Iran. Iran had actually shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which is where 20% of the entire world's energy supply transits through. And this was having a devastating effect on the global markets. Now, America came to the negotiating table with Iran. And one of the major demands from Iran, the first one, as a matter of fact, was to restrain Israel, to force America to restrain Israel, specifically in Lebanon, because Israel, of course, has been fighting a 18-front war at this point, constant frontierism, constant expansionist mentality, acquiring additional territory in Syria. They've also taken more territory in Gaza as well. When the initial Gaza ceasefire had started, Israel was only occupying 52%, which again is ridiculous. They should be occupying 0% of Gaza, but they had taken over 52% by this point now, almost a year after that initial ceasefire, the fake ceasefire was implemented. Israel is now at 64%. Israel's also taken 20% of Lebanon on top of everything else, and Israel is consistently pummeling Lebanon further and further, trying to push into Lebanese territory, violating Lebanese sovereignty, and having a tough go at it. Having a tough go at it because the Hezi boys are fighting back with FPV drones. We arrive at this past weekend. On Friday in Geneva, the United States of America with J.D. Vance and the entire Iranian delegation were supposed to sign the MOU. Trump actually signed it in the in the Palace of Versailles. J.D. Vance did not fly to Geneva on Friday because Iran said Israel is still pummeling Lebanon. We're not going to show up. The talks are off, and we're shutting off the Strait of Hormuz. Israel is still pummeling Lebanon, as a matter of fact. And earlier today, the Iranian delegation still arrived in Switzerland, and so did J.D. Vance, and the talks started. We're going to be obviously looking at the details, the minutia. But having said that, earlier Donald Trump, while the talks were going on, decided to tell Trey Yingst, Fox News national foreign policy correspondent, that he was going to threaten Iran. He was going to blow up Iran if they closed the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran reacted by leaving the talks early. Let's take a look.
President Vance arriving in Switzerland, joining U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner for a new round of negotiations with Iran today. The high-stakes meeting coming amid a fragile agreement between the two countries that has been threatened by the conflict between Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. At least 28 people have been killed in Lebanon since the ceasefire deal, according to the Lebanese state media, and at least one Israeli soldier has been killed, according to the IDF. Israel saying it targeted Hezbollah in response to incoming fire, Hezbollah accusing Israel of striking first. With the fighting in southern Lebanon escalating, Iran announcing on Saturday that it's shut the Strait of Hormuz, citing the strikes and the blatant breach and violation by the United States of the first clause of the ceasefire agreement, which calls for fighting to end on all fronts. But the U.S. is denying the claim that Iran is in control of the strait.
The straits are now open. The Iranian military is now destroyed.
CENTCOM reporting 55 merchant ships and 17 million barrels of oil traveled through on Saturday.
Still not up to the previous standard. Almost half, or, it's approximately 100 vessels that normally transit through the Strait of Hormuz, but that's a sign that things are changing for the better. Of course, there's conflicting reports here because Iran is saying they're closing the Strait of Hormuz. They've made a big deal about closing the Strait of Hormuz, just like they've made a big deal about leaving the negotiations. I personally think that maybe it's a little bit of showmanship from the Iranian side, and there's not a lot of real interest in fucking up the negotiation, which I worry that the Americans are aware of, which is why Trump is doing the theatrics here in America and Iran is doing the theatrics in Iran.
It's still unclear whether that vital waterway is open. Amid the uncertainty, President Trump declaring the US will not tolerate tolls on ships passing through the strait unless they are imposed by the US if the talks fail. But the signed deal says...
That was really funny. Yeah, Trump said, actually, we are closing the Strait of Hormuz and we are going to militarily seize control over the Strait of Hormuz. This is what he got from Lindsey Graham, by the way. We'll get to that as well. Lindsey Graham had a 4.5-hour conversation with Donald Trump about what to do next, which is always terrifying to think about because he's an animal. But Trump was reiterating that he would militarily overtake the Strait of Hormuz, something that they were not able to accomplish, but magically maybe this time they will be able to. And then they're going to charge a toll, which I found to be very funny. Trump said that they will go back. If Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz, America's going to go back to the Strait of Hormuz. And America is going to militarily dominate the Iranians and overtake the Strait of Hormuz, and then they are going to charge a toll. And I find that very funny because, well, you didn't get to do that. Like, you could have done that in the last 100 days, and there's a reason why you're doing a ceasefire instead of currently controlling the Strait of Hormuz. And I think that's precisely because you are not capable of doing that militarily. If you were able to do that, you would have done that. Also, shouts out to the Iranian team. Iran scored a goal, it seems. Congratulations. Congratulations to Iran. Let's go. Where was I? Okay, so yeah, let's get back to the deal. It's a real will they, won't they?
Pass at no charge for 60 days only. Both sides have that time to hammer out the deals of the agreement, with Iran's nuclear program in full focus. Vance outlining his hopes for the talks before taking off for Switzerland.
I think we're hopefully making progress on the nuclear issue, make progress on the Lebanon ceasefire issue. Those are the two big things that I think we're going to be focused on.
Well, the real diplomatic work, it starts now, and it's time for the sides to debate that major sticking point of what happens to Iran's stockpile of enriched nuclear material.
Let's go ahead and bring in ABC News Chief Washington Correspondent Jonathan Karl, who's going to be hosting This Week later here on ABC. John, it is good to see you, but as Britt just reported here, Vice President Vance is in Switzerland. What are the stakes for these talks?
Well, this is an opening round, Gio, and the vice president is there. We expect that within the next hour or so, he'll be sitting down with the Iranians. That part hasn't started yet, as far as we know. This is really where all the difficult issues have to get resolved. The memorandum of understanding got into no detail about what would happen with Iran's nuclear program. That was the reason for the war in the first place. So it's starting at a very tenuous moment with the Iranians backing out for a bit because of what was happening in Lebanon and saying that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. They can't even agree on whether or not the strait is open. So expectations are not particularly high, but certainly the stakes are.
So the stakes are high. So how easy?
See, Derek Suit guy approved. Interesting to me that when you see men on the global stage, beautiful Western-style tailoring is often worn by men from non-Western countries. Pictured here is Shehbaz Sharif from Pakistan, Akinwumi Adesina from Nigeria, and Narihito from Japan. That's fucking fire. Holy shit. I'm sure there are many badly dressed politicians and businessmen in Pakistan, Nigeria, and Japan, but you can't imagine the outfits above on a Western European or North American man. Instead, you're more likely to see stuff like this below. Lots of stuff driven by fashion designers ready to wear trends and a desire to look young and modern. To be fair, Pete's style is ass, but his suits are very well fitting. They're form fitting. I don't like the cut. The pattern matching on the suit is so great. The stripe matches across the gorge, which is the seam that connects the collar to the lapel. It also matches across the sleeve head of the body. And crucially, The jacket has a front dart, but the tailor created the dart in such a way to pull the stripe into another stripe, thus allowing the pattern to match across the pocket flap. This kind of thing would never be noticed by a customer unless they were obsessive about tailoring, which is unlikely in this case since Akinwumi Adesina is a high-profile economist who spends time thinking about more important matters. But it shows the tailor takes pride in their work. Also not something you see in the US because there are few real tailors left here anymore. Almost everything is run by business people who work with overseas made-to-measure factories where this sort of fine-tuning is less likely. Where on the spectrum is this class? Yes. As a man with special interests, sometimes those special interests change. And yes, you might have noticed that my special interest has turned into bespoke tailoring. For example, this is written by ChatGPT, dog? No, it's not. I have had suit autism for a little bit, but it's been great. Anyway, let's continue. Obviously, I'm not wearing anything bespoke today. Nothing tailored today. Just straight off the rack. Polar Ralph Lauren. I really do like this modern fit jacket, even though it is whatever.
Easily could the peace process really fall apart because of that conflict?
Well, it's astounding, Gio, when you consider that during a 48-hour period, you had the ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel broken and reinstated twice. Back and forth, back and forth. So look, at any moment, that can jeopardize the peace talks. Remember, neither Israel nor Hezbollah are signed the memorandum of understanding, but both of them effectively have the ability to blow it all up.
We have about 20 seconds, John, but I want to ask you, if the talks fail, what could be the next move for the Trump administration?
Well, there's two options. One is to say that, look, we diminished Iran's military. We're just going to go along and basically at an uneasy status quo. And the other option, Trump has suggested, they could resume the war. But he has also said that if the war resumes, we could face a global depression. So not a lot of good options.
All right, and we always appreciate your insight on a Sunday. John Karl, thank you so much. And tune into This Week Later. John interviews Energy Secretary Chris Wright and former Obama National...
Demon. Anyway, we'll get to the U.S.-Iran talks. I just want to give you a brief showcase of how hard Israel defenders go, okay? I'm not going to give you any notes. I just want you to listen to British Colonel Richard Kemp, retired, talking to the Jewish News Syndicate Summit in Jerusalem. No notes, no commentary. I just want you to listen to what he is going to say.
I speak as a goy, a mere goy. The Jews were put on the face of the earth to be a light unto nations. And Israel is being that light in defense of its own country. And I think most particularly, not just in military technology, but in the way in which those extraordinary men and women of the IDF have shown the world how to fight. And many countries in Western Europe, which are going to face this violence, will be looking to Israel to see how they're going to fight. So the narrative is one thing, but action, I think, is even more important.
Diabolical. Okay? I need you to understand something. First of all, obviously, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh my God, you know, the white race is being undermined here. Like, I don't care, right? I don't have a bone in my body that believes silliness like that. But this level of boomer philosemitism is actually insane. It is a manifestation of mental illness and nothing else. How did it happen? Okay? How did this happen? It's also my favorite thing to watch, like, you know, the Jewish National Syndicate or the you know, there's like a million of these conferences, as you guys know. Like, Zionist groups love throwing conferences together. And at those conferences, they love having, like, you know, American Jews or European Jews go up on those conferences and be like, we are controlling the media and it's awesome. We love controlling the media. We've been doing it for a while And we're going to keep doing it at the behest of Israel. And it's my favorite thing to basically make sure that Westerners don't have free speech. That's my favorite thing. I am Jewish, by the way, and I'm co-signing this. I'm endorsing it. It's my favorite thing to do. It's great return on investment. We love doing it. And I don't know why. And then there's thunderous applause in the room. My favorite genre of clips is like this exact thing that happens over and over again. And I genuinely don't know like what the purpose of it is. Like, who is this for? Just normal. I'm going to run that back again. I'm going to run it back again.
I speak as a goy, a mere goy. The Jews were put on the face of the earth to be a light unto nations. And Israel is being that light in defense of its own country. And I think most particularly, not just in military technology.
It's memory for anti-Semites. Yes, but memory is a Israel Knesset funded operation to like clip stuff out of context. This is not out of this is just what he's saying. Memory also will take advantage of the non-Arabic speaking world's attitudes towards Arabs in general. They'll like mistranslate things sometimes. You know what I mean? And they do it all the time, as a matter of fact. It's a very deliberate misinformation operation. JNS, on the other hand, is just straight up doing this on purpose and celebrating it. And it's not just JNS either. Yes, there's also a good deal of like posting the weirdest salafis you could imagine on television channels and whatnot, and being like, this is how every Muslim is, right? But I've often pointed to those like classic old school Kahanis videos where like some Kahanis rabbi will just be like, yes, of course, Jesus Christ is boiling in excrement. This is how all of us Jews feel about it. And every goy is cattle. And I always will be like, that's just like the Kahanis. It's not, that's a very strange fundamentalist sect. This guy is not that. This is a straight up conference. You know what I mean? This is not like an edge case. This is a retired British colonel going on a JNS conference in Jerusalem and being like, well, as a goy, Israel is bringing light to the rest of the world by melting the Lebanese children. And that's wonderful. We love it.